I used to believe that the people who were successful and rich had multiple streams of income, how they got there, right? You look at like people like Mark Cuban, they've got this, and this going, like all this stuff. But what they have going on now was completely irrelevant. I was looking at the wrong side of the spectrum. I was looking at what they were doing now. What I should have been looking at is how they got to where they were. And that was the thing that I'd been fucking up for the last 3 years. They got to where they were, they got rich by getting really, really good at one thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Corey.
Hey, what's up, Evan?
It's so good to see you, dude. I read what you submitted. I think you are into some really cool stuff at the moment. Would you tell me a little bit more about yourself and like how you got started?
Sure. So I did some music production. I worked with some bands locally and did some stuff on Fiverr. I actually was trained by a Grammy-winning production team in Franklin, Tennessee. Then I worked at Guitar Center for a bit, managed the lessons department, which I didn't teach, but I managed the instructors, the schedules, the payments with all of the accounts and all that stuff. I've always had dreams of owning my own businesses and specifically multiple businesses because I'm a little bit ADHD. I don't think I'd ever be happy with just one thing. I want to be doing a bunch of stuff. I have an older half brother in his late 30s who lives in LA now. He's starting a barbecue restaurant with his best friend.
Cool.
I'm not super close with him, but I'm hoping that both of us being involved in starting our own businesses might kind of bridge that a little bit. I started community college for business administration, made some semi-dumb decisions with credit card debt and school loans and stuff, thankfully under 20 grand.
Nice.
Realized that I hated school though because it seemed impractical and didn't teach me like real world stuff. And so especially as it pertained to business, so realized I was bad with money, would need to start working to pay bills. So I went and got a good job at Guitar Center, and I was there for about 5 years before I left to go make peace with and reconcile with my dad. Introduced him to my fiance at the time. We spent a weekend together catching up, repairing our relationship. About a week later, my fiance and I got married at a small private ceremony with no one there because COVID and other complications with our families. And then 3 days after that, my dad passed away in his sleep at 59. So all that to say, things have been crazy, way more up and down than I wish they'd been, but I'm determined to use all of my experiences to build better future for both my wife and I and our future kids. And so in the last year, I've gotten super familiar with Robert Kiyosaki and have shifted my goals accordingly. I'm hoping to own very little myself, but have businesses that let me travel and do cool stuff and get to experience stuff and build interesting things. I want to be able to be creative without being hindered by circumstance like my wife and I had growing up. So
I feel that, man. I really do.
Yeah, so that's everything in a nutshell.
That was a great synopsis. That was a great nutshell, dude. Like that was really well said. Like I commend you for that. So that's where you're at. Like that's what led you up to this point.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I took from that is that you really want to be, I don't know, you want to write your own destiny, for lack of a better term. You want to be in control. You don't want to be the employee anymore. You've done that route, and now it's you want to be the boss and the entrepreneur. And so you've gotten to this point now where you have all these skills that you've developed over the course of your life in music, in providing services for people, and you're about to choose one of those. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what are the items on your list, and what are the different pathways that are laid out in front of you? What options do you have at the moment, Corey?
So I could do several things, and I have kind of dabbled in doing music production stuff because I really enjoy music. I want that to be something that I do, but it's complicated to do that without having a good space for it. There are people that produce from home and stuff, and I can do that, but I want to be working with bands and have like a place to work with them. And I also want to be able to maybe teach music production and do some more hands-on stuff that I can't do without a facility. And so I've tried to revisit that a few times. I decided I'm going to wait on that. What I'm wanting to do now is I want to do a rental company for like pro audio gear. Later on, I'm also interested in doing like a vending machine company, some other things. And if I do it right, I think I could lease the vending machines for my rental company, and I could lease the music equipment to my studio when I build a studio from the rental company later on. So I can have multiple LLCs that are tied together that are all doing business together and stuff.
Yeah, that's totally an option. You could totally do that.
Yeah. So I figure
absolutely.
I could do something like that because the rental company seems like much easier thing for me to get into without having to have a really big space and a bunch of stuff going on. I can kind of start smaller with it, get that going, and then kind of organically grow into the other things that I'm wanting to do.
Interesting. Okay. So of all of those things, is the rental company the thing that you think is the most, I don't want to say the lightest lift, but like the lowest hanging fruit?
I think it's the most feasible thing for me right
Most
now.
feasible. That's the word. Good.
Considering my circumstances, I think that would be a lot easier to do than
Yeah.
the other things.
Yeah, most definitely. I could see that, as you would need to build up a clientele base. You have to build up a clientele base for all of them.
Mhm.
But it would be easier, in my opinion, to find people that you could rent equipment to than to teach specifically without
Yeah,
having a space. So
right.
that makes sense. Yeah, that's really
And
interesting. And then one you can be built while the other is being built.
right, and then later, like if I want to go build my studio, I kind of have a plan for what I want to do with that. Like, there's a couple of people that have done similar things, but on a smaller scale in my town. And what I want to do is get like a warehouse and
Yeah.
build a couple like studio rooms with like drywall and insulation, and then the air gap of 3 inches, and another drywall and so build in
Yeah.
rooms inside of a big studio. If I do that right, I could share space. I could get a bigger warehouse that I store other stuff as I grow, so I could have multiple things in one area.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It really is. You could execute all of your visions in one space if it was large enough and
Yeah.
the right space. So totally doable, man. I think it's a great idea. So where are you at in the process now? And like, what have you found to be like the biggest challenge moving forward to get this up and running?
Well, so I wrote down some questions because
Great.
I'm just trying to figure out how to get it started the right way. I
Mhm.
I have a general understanding, but there's little things that I just need to understand better.
Of course.
One of the things was, well, I'll just go through this. Is it possible to add? I assume it is, but another member to my sole member LLC later on, and in like an executive capacity? And also, are those names like kind of arbitrary, like vice president and other positions? Could anyone be anything they wanted in the company as long as I appoint them later?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd be happy to answer that for you and elaborate a little bit. The short answer is yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. But it's a little bit more nuanced as you grow.
Okay.
The names are arbitrary, just so you know. However, any C-level executive, like COO, CEO, chief of
Right.
operations, whatever, all of the executive team on your company, because they are executives, it is assumed that they're not going to sue the company if something happens to them in an employer-employee relationship.
Hmm.
Okay, so if you hire your brother as your COO and you're the CEO, and you're paying him, put him on payroll and everything, you don't have to get workers' comp insurance for your brother, because it's like, he's not going to sue the company. He's an executive. Like, that would be dumb. That would be, why would you do that?
Yeah.
If he was a regular person, like just an operations manager and not a COO, not executive level team, the state would say, you need to get workers' comp. That's an employee. They could sue you if you fight
Okay.
them. And
Gotcha.
so that's where the executive level team distinction comes in. Reliability.
Okay.
So pick and choose there. When it comes time to add or remove members of your LLC, you will simply alter the operating agreement and have both parties sign it. That's it.
Got it. Okay.
And then, of course, updating your information with the state once a year, depending on if they require you to write down any other partners that were added.
Okay.
Sometimes they do.
All right. And then should I wait till January to start a business? I've heard December 15th floated out a couple times from people. I don't know what that means.
What
Is that
state
good
are you
enough?
in?
I'm in California.
Okay. Well, California waived that $800 fee for the first year.
Yeah.
I'm of the proponent, like, never wait. If you can't afford the $800 for the next year, then, like, we have other fish to fry.
Yeah.
On one hand. On the other hand, it's like, I mean, if you waited, like, to the 15th, that's like 25 days or so. If you did that, you could potentially be putting off that $800 for another year if they reinstated it. So
Right.
whatever of those is most important to you.
Okay. Did I get that date right, though? December 15th,
Yes.
I could file. Okay.
That's the grace period for that. It will count for 2023 being your calendar year of not having to pay the $800.
Gotcha. Okay. And then is it possible to write off like the course and some of the other things I'm getting for the LLC before it actually gets formed, even if I paid for them in November of this year and I don't form it till December 15th?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so the LLC is not going to change the way that your taxes and write-offs are structured, because, I mean, honestly, like, Corey, you're going into business and doing business no matter what. Like, so anything that you spend in terms of like education and getting ready to make that money is considered an expense, regular and ordinary. So as long as you keep track of it and those expenses are submitted to your CPA for record keeping and apply to your taxes at the end of the year, you're good. It doesn't matter when you form the LLC.
Cool. And then sales tax is taken out of the gross revenue. So we need to set that up differently than like something that needs to come off right off the top, right? So we can't put that into, okay.
I keep an account, open up a separate account within my bank.
Okay.
And I call it my tax account. And that's where I take a percentage of the top line revenue. Every dollar that comes in, I take a piece and I put it in the tax account so that my business pays all my taxes for me.
Okay. And then California Department of Tax and Fees Administration seller's permit. Do we need this for a service? Yeah.
Not necessarily, no.
No?
Not necessarily. It's a good thing to have because it gets you registered with the state. And I would double check on the services as well. My gut says no, but I would double check just in case.
Okay.
Because not everybody needs a seller's permit.
Right. Okay. I guess if we got it, then later if we wanted to, we could sell off stuff. That would make it easier to sell stuff.
Yeah.
But
A lot of times what the seller's permit does is it proves to other people that you're a real business and that you are going to be collecting the sales tax from the customer.
okay.
Because if you're the final customer, a wholesale company is going to be like, yo, you need to pay a sales tax. And you would be like, no, we don't. We're going to resell this stuff to the customer. We're not going to pay you sales tax twice. And so that's where the seller's permit comes in to prove that you are a certified middleman. You are a real company.
Gotcha. Okay. Can equipment be borrowed by an LLC or does it need to be leased or sold to be covered? Like if I have gear already or one of my friends who's interested in maybe becoming a member wants to, if we want to contribute gear, how does that process work and how would that be covered by the company?
Whatever the company arranges with that personal individual.
Okay.
So if you, Corey, say, I'll lease my equipment to my company, but the only time I'm going to lease it to the company is if that company has an insurance policy for everything that they own or in their possession. But then that company then has to establish an insurance policy. Okay. Or you could come up with a private insurance agreement between you and your own company. Okay. Or, you could get your own insurance on the equipment and put a clause in there that you are able to lease it to this company. So there's like multiple ways to do it. If going the private route, company in person agreement is the easiest. However, it's the easiest and the cheapest, but you're not gonna get the coverage that you might be looking for if the equipment is really expensive.
Okay.
In my opinion, what I would do in that situation is I would more or less sell the equipment to my LLC as a personal person, have the company own the equipment, and then get insurance from an insurance company on the equipment that the company now owns. That would make things very simple.
Okay. And then if I do that, do I have to sell it for fair market value?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No. You will need to record the serial numbers and then establish a fair market value with the insurance company to get proper coverage for it, though.
Okay, but so I could sell it to the company for very little to cut costs. Okay.
Or you could lend it.
I could lend it.
Yeah,
that's more complicated though, right?
Yeah, or gift it.
Okay.
Or it could be your contribution as a startup. For the startup, you can spin it as many ways, different ways as you want to.
Okay, but you think selling it is the simplest way? I could sell it to the company,
selling it or contributing it to as your capital startup. You know what I mean? In the operating agreement templates from the Accelerator, there's a place where you can put in non-capital contributions, and you could write in 4 PAs, 3 amps, 6 microphones, and the fair market value's X amount. So I've contributed $44,000 worth of equipment.
Okay.
And then you can get that insured.
Cool. Do you have any leads on anyone that would be good for insurance for that? Yeah.
yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put a name in the chat right now for you. My buddy James has your back. He's in California.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tried to get a couple quotes from some of the local places and including the bigger ones, but they're not very clear about things and they don't really care to help explain anything. Yeah.
It's a different world we're operating in.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Okay. When dealing with equity, is it important to maintain a 51% majority, or is it safe to let equity investors take up whatever percentage they contribute so long as they don't have managerial rights?
I think that's an important distinction to make in the operating agreement and important distinction to make with the investors. If people are contributing, just be like, hey, you're contributing for advisory shares, shares that are non-voting. So you can retain control and have less than 50% of the company.
Okay.
In my opinion, that really only matters when it comes down to corporations and dividing up stock.
Okay.
And it really is only going to matter if you go to court. For example, how do I want to put this? For someone to enforce that, shit really has to go down. And
Okay.
one party really has to distrust the other party for them to like exercise like, well, I've got control and this is what's going to happen. And no, you don't. We have control. This is what's going to happen. That's a shitty position to be in anyway.
Yeah.
And so we want to avoid that at all costs from the very beginning. And so you can alter your operating agreement or pre-establish that with the investors beforehand.
Okay.
Instead of giving equity, you could give like a portion of profits, a portion of revenue, a portion of the company if it's sold. You can do all these creative things instead of equity, and you can avoid all of those problems.
Okay. Yeah, that was gonna be my next question, because I was trying to figure out like what equity investors who don't have ownership or managerial rights, like what do they actually get? What's fair for them? Like how do you convince them to invest if they're not a controlling part of the company?
Yep, they're gonna want to trust you. Is the main thing. They're investing in you, not the business.
Okay.
And so they'll really want to trust you, and you're going to want to show them how they're going to get paid back. And so it's up to you to paint that picture. And they probably won't invest if they don't know how they're going to get a return on their money. Mm-hmm. And so we illustrate that by showing them either an exit or how they're going to realize part of the profits as your company grows. And so those are like the two main ways, in my opinion.
Do you find that there's like a general amount of time that you think is reasonable for them to like start getting paid back, like right off the get-go when you go talk to people, if you're going to have them invest? Like, is it like 2 years, or like how, I assume it varies, but
it does vary with the business model. It depends on when the business becomes profitable, because we don't pay investors back until the business starts turning a profit, because then we're just putting ourselves more in a hole.
Right.
And so I would balance that. First, march out your finances, best case, worst case, medium case scenario. It's called a pro forma. You can hire people on Fiverr to do it for you too. But basically be like, oh, we're going to break even at the 13-month mark. And we're going to start turning a profit by the 14-month mark. We're going to do profit distributions every quarter after we become profitable of this percentage. Okay. Or like, you're giving me your money and I'm going to build for 5 years. 5 years, you're not going to see anything. And then in 5 years, we're going to start giving you a return on your money.
Okay.
Or you're not going to get paid back until we sell the business.
Okay. Can I contract out myself to build a website, or my wife to do bookkeeping, or do we need to hire other people, or wait to pay ourselves later with a draw?
You can pay yourself at any time for whatever you want. This company is you, and you are the company. And so you don't even need to contract with yourself. You can just do the work and take it.
Okay. So the draw's fine for whatever.
Draw is fine for whatever you can do, or you can do anything that you need to do in any sense in this regard to make the money.
This is more just like a personal preference thing. I know it probably depends for everybody, but for a startup, should large expenses like web store or rental software be paid annually at the beginning of the business, or be kind of budgeted out and plan to pay monthly? I know that a lot of things, like, you can save money if you do it annually instead. What would you recommend?
I recommend keeping as much available cash as possible.
Okay.
And because you're going to find that you're going to be pivoting a lot, and you're going to be signing up for stuff that you're going to use once or twice, and then it's no longer going to be used and you're going to cancel it. Or, you're going to go on this pathway and you're going to start and you're going to be like, oh, never mind, back up, and then go back down another pathway. I really like the flexibility of monthly, even though you have to pay more.
Okay.
That's just my personal opinion, though.
Okay. What changes would have to be made to the operating agreement for a manager-managed LLC as opposed to just member-managed?
Well, I honestly don't really believe in the manager-managed LLC for most cases, especially in a case like yours. I mean, actually, I can't say that, because if you were to bring on minority partners, people that you didn't want to manage the LLC, but you wanted them to be a part of it, you could bring them on as a non-voting member or whatever. Basically, you update your operating agreement is what you do. the states made it really, really easy for LLCs to change the way that they are just by changing the operating agreement. And if you don't have an operating agreement in place, you default to the state's operating agreement, which is not that great. That's why I provided one in the accelerator, so you can chop out pieces and change it around. And if you, as long as you and your partners each have a copy of this operating agreement, like, no one's ever going to ask for it. No one's ever going to look at it. The only time it's going to surface is if you guys go to court, or if someone dies, or if something happens and you need a material to reference. How do we handle this when we get in a disagreement? What are we supposed to do again? That's what the operating agreement will be there for. So that is your key to the kingdom. It outlines all of those little details about the business. So if you wanted somebody to come in and be like, a manager of your LLC, whatever, you can outline it all there.
Okay. And it really doesn't matter how we set it up. It can be whatever as far as that goes.
To a certain extent, yeah.
Okay. Last thing that I wrote down, do I need a bookkeeper if I'm using, so I have this service that I looked into for rentals called Bookable, and it uses Stride and stuff, and it connects to stuff. So if I'm using that for all of my transactions, and then I manually input all the other business transactions into like QuickBooks, do I still need a bookkeeper, you think?
I think you need a bookkeeper when it becomes time consuming for you.
Okay.
Or when it's something that becomes overwhelming. Some people do their books in the beginning, some people outsource them in the beginning.
Okay.
It really depends on your personal preference. Me, I outsourced it immediately because I screwed it up the first year really bad. And I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. So if you set up QuickBooks and you link your debit card and you link your credit card up to it, and then you link up Bookly, or I'm sorry, whatever the rental service is, and Stripe, it will pull all of that data into QuickBooks. And all you have to do is be like, yeah, this one was for food, this one was for cost of the service provided, this one was for maintenance, and you just have to classify it and it will all be there. But when you get to a point where the money in QuickBooks doesn't match the money in your bank account and you're like, oh shit, what did I do wrong here? That's when you need a bookkeeper.
Okay. Cool. All right. That's the extent of my questions.
Great questions, Corey. Like, I can tell you've done your homework. I can tell you're on this path, man. I think that's really cool.
I'm trying to move faster because it's easy to let time keep going by and not actually committing to stuff. So I'm trying to stay on it. Yep.
But I did want to share one thing with you, Corey.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you'll find this helpful or not, but it wasn't even too long ago that I learned this. But I used to believe that the people who were successful and rich had multiple streams of income, how they got there, right? You look at like people like Mark Cuban, they've got this, and this going, like all this stuff. But what they have going on now was completely irrelevant. I was looking at the wrong side of the spectrum. I was looking at what they were doing now. What I should have been looking at is how they got to where they were. And that was the thing that I'd been fucking up for the last 3 years. They got to where they were. They got rich by getting really, really good at one thing.
Yeah.
One thing. And then once they got rich, they kept their wealth by diversifying.
Right.
And so, like, I was trying to do all these different things, and like a YouTube channel, and this, and a course, and blah blah blah, and the crypto projects, and the tax and wealth strategies, and building this company. I'm like, that's how you do it, right? You have multiple irons in the fire. Like, all of these things will work out. But what I've quickly learned, and Alex Hormozy has had a lot to do with this thought, in case you follow him or not. But once I stopped and really like internalized that concept and broke that belief, and I focused on one thing, it has provided all of the energy and the money that's needed for all the other ventures in the future. So it's true. And I wanted to share that with you because I see a lot of myself in you and what you have going on right now, and totally respect your journey and what you plan to do. I just wanted to share that learning with you because it was very impactful for me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I appreciate that. It's
hard, dude.
It's tough because I have so many things I want to do. It's like impossible for me to be like, definitively, I would love to do this. I'm going to stick with this for forever.
Agreed.
But yeah, I think I've been struggling through that without anyone actually like telling me that the last few years. And so I'm kind of figuring it out that like there's other stuff I want to be doing. I can't do it right now. It's not stuff that I can't multitask the way I wanted to. I need to do one thing and make that work. And then I do think that with the idea that I've got, it could, transition into the other things later and allow for it. But yeah, I want to stick to this one project.
Yeah, it definitely will. And it's not so much just like you have to do it forever, because I understand that mentality too. And I know you don't believe, you're not thinking in terms of absolutes, but like, let's say you started this rental business, right? And it went well for like 6 months, but in like month 9, you're like, dude, I don't even like this. I
Mm,
don't like these people that I'm serving. Like, this isn't the customer I want to be dealing with. Like, I'm going to change it up. Learning what you don't like is just as important as learning what you do like.
yeah.
And so this whole process of trying things will get you closer to that one thing that you can dig into for about 5 years.
Mm,
And then hopefully in that 5 to 10 year period, that period of mastery, will allow you to get to a point where you're able to turn on that tap and just create that energy, and the money will flow in. And then that will allow you to diversify and keep it. But just remember that as you're doing that one thing, you can stop at any point on this ascension and diversify and stay where you are. But the longer you stick at one thing, the deeper you can go and the more that you can earn. And I just thought that was such a cool concept that I hadn't been looking at it that way. So
yeah. Yeah. Huh. Cool. That's awesome.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, really interesting, man. I would really like you to keep me updated too, because I'm really curious how this goes for you.
Cool. Is email best?
Email or DM me on Instagram. Yeah.
Sweet. Thanks.
Was there anything else that I could
Yeah, I was gonna ask your opinion about like working with friends. Like, I always thought working with your friends would be an easy thing. Seems like the older I get, the more complicated that gets. And so, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I get that, dude. I get your conundrum. I really do. My experience has been don't go into business with your friends.
Okay.
If you would rather have them as a friend, go into a business with your friends if you're willing to lose them as a friend.
Mm,
And so you have to determine what's more important to you. I really like finding people to go into business with and then becoming friends with them.
mm,
That's my favorite. But you will also find, Corey, that as you grow in this role of being a business owner, you will start changing because you will have to. You will have to become the person that is capable of managing 100 grand, managing, $500,000, managing investor relationships. You're going to become a new person. And as
right.
you grow and become a new person, other people are not going to want to continue on that journey with you.
That was the thing that I was getting a little bit scared of when I was looking at this, because I kind of drew up like ideally where I'd like to be in 3, 5, 10 years, just hypothetically. And I thought the further that goes along, the more anyone that's working with me, I'm gonna have to trust that they know exactly what's going on, that they can keep up. And I don't know if they can.
That's right. Yeah, and it's a reality that not a lot of people put a lot of they don't really talk about that often. But like, I mean, I've lost chunks and chunks of friends like 2 or 3 times in my life as each level has been attained. The price of your new life is your old life. And so if that friend and business partner is part of that old life, they can become, it's just there's a gap there.
Hmm.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah. Now, it's not all doom and gloom because, that answer puts you in a position where you're alone again.
Hmm.
And being alone is not honestly very fun to build a business. Like, I've done both. I've built with partners and alone is lonelier. What I can tell you is that if you cast a vision, if you really write down like a vision for how you want this company to look, how you want it to be, what you expect it to operate like in 3 to 5 years from now, like you've done, and then you start talking about that with other people, the right person will eventually present themselves as your partner. They'll have contrasting skill set to you. If you're a visionary, they'll be more of a builder. If you're a builder, they'll be more of a visionary. Or they'll be more analytical and you'll be more, driven in terms of like vision or ideas. There'll be more numbers, you'll be more other stuff.
Hmm.
So I want you to think of it like that. Look for somebody, keep talking about what you're doing with like everybody. At the gym, when you're fucking standing in line at the grocery store, at Thanksgiving, because people know people and we're only a few degrees separated from that right person. They'll
Right.
show up.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
I feel you, man. Yeah, you're very welcome. I really enjoyed talking to you, Corey. Like, I'm excited for you, man. Like, this is a cool place to be.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything that you're most looking forward to over the next like couple weeks?
Mm, I'm stoked to like actually get the documents in place and have everything like officially started, so that I don't have to, because I'm watching myself when I talk to people. Like, not that anything's like proprietary, but like I want to have it formed so that when I talk to people, it's like this isn't like an idea out in the ether. It's like a real thing that's happening. And so
Yes.
I guess once that point is established in a couple weeks, I think I'm going to be, really stoked then.
Cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. If you ever need any feedback or you want to share it with me, like, please send it over my way.
Okay. Awesome. I will.
All right, man. And I'm here for you if you need me. Otherwise, like, dude, keep it up, man. Keep it up.
Cool.
You're kicking ass.
Thanks, Evan.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. Well, have a wonderful day, Corey. It was really great to meet you, dude.
You too. Thank you. See ya.